How's it going, everyone? This is Colin from Havoc Performance. Today I have a 97 twin turbo GTS. It's here for a few performance upgrades, one of which we're going to go over is the Havoc Performance upgraded water pump. We're going to go over all the other upgrades on a later video, but right now I'm going to show you how to remove and install your new water pump on your Viper. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so today we're going to explain how to do a water pump replacement on a Gen 2. First, we're going to start by removing the intake. This is a twin turbo build, so obviously the intake's going to look a bit different, but the process is still the same. So for us, we're going to remove these two tubes here, and then we're going to show you how to proceed next. So now we're going to demonstrate how to remove the serpentine belt. The tensioner is down here below the alternator. You need a 15mm wrench, and you're going to push it this way to remove it, and you can usually just take it off from any of the pulleys right here. Ordinarily I say the smoother the easier, but since your wrench is right there, it makes it a little more annoying. So as you can see, the belt is off and loose, and we are going to fully remove that from the vehicle. So now we need to drain the coolant from the radiator. On most of these Vipers, it usually has a drain port on the lower side of the radiator right here. You're just going to twist that off and let the coolant drain out. It is a lot easier to get the coolant drained out efficiently if you have the radiator cap off. So just make sure the coolant is nice and cold before you start draining it. Okay, now that we have the coolant drained, we're going to go ahead and start removing this crossbar. It's not completely necessary to remove the crossbar, but it makes life a lot easier to get the water pump out. So to start, we're going to remove the upper radiator hose. We're going to remove the two 11mm bolts holding in the power steering oil cooler. The catch can ordinarily isn't here, but since this is a twin turbo setup, it is. We have two 15mm bolts here and here. One is a through bolt that goes into the wheel well, and I'll show you how to remove that when we remove the rivet. The rivet is above here, and there's also a 15mm bolt and nut down below. And normally there is a harness, which you can kind of see here, that is attached with clips to the lower part of that bar. This part is going to be a bit of a pain. Getting this bar out is fairly difficult, but when it's out, it makes getting the water pump removal and installation a lot easier. Okay, so now looking through the wheel well, this is the bolt and the rivet that we are going to take out for that crossbar. You're going to use a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill out the head of the rivet, and you're just going to punch out that center. You're going to do this on both sides. Alright, so here is the bolt for the underside of this crossbar. So you're just going to remove that, and you should be able to work the bar out. Okay, with that crossbar out of the way, we can now go ahead and take the lower radiator hose off and the water pump pulley off. You're going to use a 1/2-inch socket to take those off. Okay, now that we have the pulley and the hose out of the way, we can now work on getting the pump out. You're going to remove the idler pulley, and then there are 5 bolts holding the water pump in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's also 2 hoses down over on the side. I'll give you a better view of the hoses and where they go. Alright, so these are the 2 hoses that need to be removed. The top one runs along and goes to the pipe that runs along the passenger side valve cover, and the bottom one runs to the coolant tank. Remove those, and we are ready to remove the water pump. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like with the old water pump off. You are going to need to remove that old gasket. Usually a gasket scraper or a razor blade works pretty well. You just got to be careful not to gouge or mar that aluminum behind the gasket. And if you need to get any more gasket off, usually you could use a little yellow bristle disc on a whiz wheel. Just be careful when using those. You don't want to make the surface uneven. And we should be ready to install a new gasket and a new water pump. So if you guys follow us on Facebook and Instagram, you guys odds are probably see our posts about the upgraded water pumps. Here's a side-by-side comparison of them. The main difference between the two is the impeller is actually metal as opposed to plastic. Inside here are actually open water passages to allow for better coolant flow, whereas inside here is actually solid. And what happens on the factory water pumps is that the plastic, where it meets this brass The brass is actually the bearing. What happens is either it cracks and breaks, or it melts, so that way the bearing is just spinning but the impeller itself actually isn't rotating. So that's usually what happens, and that's why you get overheating conditions. So that's why we replace it with the better impeller and the new bearing. Alright, so as you can see, we have our water pump installed. Usually what we like to do is apply a thin layer of gray RTV or gasket sealer to both sides of the gasket before installing the water pump. One thing to note is to make sure you have the crankshaft position sensor bracket over this bolt. And usually what I like to do is torque the bolts in a star-like pattern to 30 foot-pounds. If you haven't done so already, now is a really good time to replace your factory water hoses with some nice silicone ones, and to check all the bearings and all of your pulleys. And from here, you're just going to reinstall everything in reverse order.
Thanks for watching our video today, guys. Make sure you like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel along with our Havoc Performance Instagram to stay current with all the Viper information and all the Viper things that we're going to be doing, and not to mention to be hanging out with us and Marvin and seeing everything that goes on at the shop. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.